What's everybody? Welcome back to the Grand Torino. Delighted to have with me today SGT Report, one of the foremost news information services over in the United States. Good friend of mine who had me back on here today and is at the front line of sharing information that the mainstream media outlets won't report to you. So we are going to touch on all things. We're going to touch on all things vaccine related, 5G, Q. President Trump, everything that's going on. I'm just going to do the mother load drop with Sean, and I couldn't have anyone so much at the front line and so involved. And let's just get to it, Sean. Sean, how are you? Thanks for joining me.
Rowan, thanks for having me on. We've got a lot to talk about, and it's not all good news, unfortunately.
Yeah, I believe you've got a bit of information for us towards the end. Maybe we'll keep that towards the end of the show. I've been very much just traveling around, interviewing certain personalities over here, and the momentum has been gaining over here for a sort of nationalist, populist kind of resurgence that's coming into play. A lot of great YouTube contenters, a lot of great YouTube content creators abroad there where you are. You were one of the first people that really got me to start questioning my epistemology and what was actually going on. From you, Sean, what's the day-to-day like today? What's happening on your end?
Well, look, here's where I think we should start, Rowan. The attack on the alternative truth media has never been more blatant and overt, and the New World Order, powers that be, want to shut us all up, shut us all down. Now, we know that YouTube announced back on January 22nd that they were changing their algorithms to filter out what they call disinformation or misinformation or conspiracy-related content. You know, ever since, I've watched my new subscribers on a monthly basis plummet from 30,000 to 35,000 new subs per month down to below 3,000 per month. So they're capping views, they're capping our ability to communicate, and now we see it, of course, on Twitter. We see it on Facebook. They're depersoning and deplatforming people like Paul Joseph Watson and others, and they are relentless. And here's the problem. They're not going to stop. So what we need is an Internet Bill of Rights, or better yet, we need this president to step in and under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which gives these platforms immunity from liability as long as they act as free and level public platforms. He needs to enforce that by taking away their immunity, because now they're picking and choosing who can be on their platform. Therefore, they are acting as publishers. They're doing that on YouTube, they're doing it on Facebook, and they're doing it on Twitter. So now there is force that could be applied to them to make them return to a level playing field. But here's the bad news. I want to share something with you. And I just found this out last night in a video by Brother Nathaniel that I posted over on my website, thephaser.com. And it's deeply, deeply disturbing. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see that?
Yeah, we got that.
All right. I want you to meet Elon Carr. He's the new special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism in this country.
Really?
In early April, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo swore in this special envoy, Elon Carr. Now, I'm going to play a soundbite for you, and it's chilling. Let me find it here. Here it is. Listen to this. This is Elon Carr.
Lastly, we are going to focus relentlessly on eradicating this false distinction between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. The Secretary could not have been clearer. He stood before 18,000 activists at the AIPAC Policy Conference just 2 weeks ago, and he declared, I quote, "Let me go on the record, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism."
Let me go on record. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism.
That will be our rallying cry as we go forward to fight this ancient scourge that sadly is on the rise today.
All right, I'm going to pause it there. And I have so much more to say about this, but if that doesn't chill you to the bone, Rowan, nothing will, because they are going to continue to target our free speech. They're going to continue to target the First Amendment in this country and our ability to seek truth and speak truth. And I tell you what's chilling about that particular clip. Many of us in the alt media truth space have been fearless in our convictions to expose the purge, the plague of Zionism. Rothschild Zionism. So to hear that from Elon Carr, who was appointed to that special envoy position by Mike Pompeo, is me basically hearing Rothschild. And if we can't criticize the Rothschild Zionist apparatus that controls this world, we are doomed. And I think it's only going to get worse. We can see what they're doing. They're targeting Christians all over the globe, and they're trying to foster this war of religions. And now they're saying we can't criticize Israel. And there's no distinction to be made between anti-Semitism, criticism of all Jews, and and Zionism, which is criticism of the I think it's the Khazarian Jews and the Rothschilds specifically. So that's very, very chilling because, as you know and I know and the audience knows, it's not an ancient scourge. Zionism was created under the Balfour Declarations, Rothschild Zionism in 1917. And again, we can see what they're doing. You can't criticize Israel, which was founded in what, 1946, 48? We're in a lot of trouble, Rowan, if they're going to take away our ability to speak freely and criticize whomever we'd like.
Absolutely, 100% agree. I don't know if you're aware of him, and it's not a pre-advertisement here, but Owen Benjamin, who's been very vocal and very outspoken on his channel there, he's had the whole range. He's been depersoned from Twitter. Facebook's been taken away, and his YouTube has been demonetized heavily. Again, the same sort of happenings that happens with your account, my account, throttling, shortening of numbers, more so on your scale. I've seen your analytics when you've reported on it. But Owen Benjamin criticizes the Zionist contingency in the alt media space. Not only has he been demonetized now, PayPal, I believe Patreon are starting to withdraw services from him. So he is effectively becoming a Tommy Robson-esque, where he's being depersoned on the internet. I would presume bank accounts will withdraw their services to him as well. And because, as you say, and as we just see here now, those that cannot be criticized cannot be criticized. And he is a comedian, so it's his job to smash down, sacred cows.
Well, that's 100% right. But it's worse than that, because now they're targeting not just Owen Benjamin, not just Paul Joseph Watson. They're targeting all sources of alternative news media. Let me do another screen share and show you this. Maybe you heard about this, but this is pretty chilling as well. Where's my share? Check this out. All right. So last week, this organization called the Poynter Institute released their report asking for 515 websites that they deem unreliable news to be blacklisted and basically banned from the internet. All right, so they write, misinformation is a thriving industry on the internet supported by social media shares, advertising dollars, and political donations. In the United States, scores of research reports try to measure how falsehoods spread online. These studies often require lists of untrustworthy news sources, but many of these lists have grown out of date and incomplete. So these folks took it upon themselves to gather up a list of 515 websites that they say are biased, unreliable, fake, or spread conspiracy theories. And among this list of 515 websites are sites like Zero Hedge, Breitbart, DaveJanda.com, you name it. Anybody pretty much in the alternative news space where conservatives, libertarians, and people who are waking up want to go to seek alternatives to the corporate propaganda like SGT Report are on here. Now, funny thing I will add to this is that my two websites, thephaser.com and thelibertymill.com, are on this list. But somebody over at the Southern Poverty Law Center, who had a role in this, and funding by George Soros, I would add, screwed up. And the woman who put this report together, this happens a lot. People will say, I heard Alex Jones not too long ago do a shout out to, he said, an STG report. People get it confused. So SGT Report is not on this list, despite being one of the bigger websites on this list. There's a...
see the phaser there,
yeah, the phaser, the Liberty. What here was for SGT Report. I think they screwed up, which I'm fine with. I'm happy about. But let's see, STG. where is it? Right there. Something, they screwed up. So whoever put this together, she put a website that ranks 19,550,000 on this, and SGT Report ranks 25,000 in the world. But I wanted to add something, Rowan. Before they all started, and when I say they all, I mean the social media giants and Google specifically started to target alternative news media, SGT Report was consistently in the top 14 or 15,000 websites in the world. It has just in the past few months now fallen to 25,000 in the world. And the point is that I'm seeing that with dozens and dozens of other websites as well, websites that were ranking much higher than mine. It wasn't that long ago that some of these alternative news websites, the more popular ones that people know, were in the top 2,000 in the country. And now I'm seeing some of those fall to 6,000, 8,000. They are filtering out from their search algorithms truth media. Mm-hmm. So I would ask everybody listening to stop using Google. You cannot support Google any longer. Use DuckDuckGo. Just type in vaccines. Type in 5G dangers or vaccine dangers right now into Google, and then do the exact same thing in DuckDuckGo. And you will see a stark contrast, a big difference in the stuff you're served up at Google versus the stuff you'll be served up from more honest search engines. So that's the first thing we need to do, folks, is stop using Google as a search engine.
Absolutely. And you can just carry that out there yourselves there on the audience there. Just try that. You'll see completely different results. The Gulag likes to tell you that. I remember an interview with the ex-CEO before he stepped down and was retired. He said that Google should only give you one answer, and if they give you multiple answers, that's a bug in the system. So effectively, they're telling you what to think.
Eric Schmidt. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, he calls it a bug. If you're looking for truth and they can't give you but one answer, if they give you more than one answer, according to him, and that would be what? That would be the official narrative, the propagandist narrative. If they give you any more returns than that one propagandist narrative on whatever it is you're looking for, he calls that a bug.
Bug, yeah.
And that was a couple years ago. And now they've really, really refined it to the point where you cannot get of the truth you're looking for if you use Google. And the same problem is happening on YouTube, which is exactly why instead of me adding 35,000 new subscribers a month like I was throughout the last 6 months of last year, I'm only adding 3,000 a month or sometimes less. The other day I was losing subs on a daily basis, I saw in my algorithms, and it's because they're not recommending channels like mine to new people, to people that are new to YouTube or people who are just waking up. How are people going to wake up, Rowan, if they're in the process of waking up, but all this truth information goes away and they can't find it?
That's precisely right. And I would have thought under President Trump and with the Q phenomena that's going on, I thought we were getting past this. I thought we were actually going to take these deep state actors out. But Mike Pompeo bringing in this new alliance now with this new online anti-Zionist czar that's being appointed, that doesn't bode well at all, does it?
Yeah, well, we're going to have to see what happens here with indictments. I'm holding out hope that Joe DeGenova is right, and we're going to see grand juries, and we're going to see indictments, and we're going to see perp walks, and people like John Brennan aren't going to need one lawyer, they're going to need 5. That's quoting DeGenova specifically from his appearance on Fox News. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm holding out hope that these deep state traitors who tried to topple our president will be taken down. And, you know, I'm hoping justice will be served. But that doesn't change the fact that if they force us to stop talking about Zionism, or we'll be thrown in jail, or if they force us to take vaccines, or if they force 5G down our throats, it doesn't change the fact that we're still in a lot of trouble. Even if Hillary Clinton was arrested tomorrow and thrown in Guantanamo, if they're going to force us to take vaccines or throw us in jail, it's game over. I mean, that's the line in the sand. Then what? We're forced into a revolution? I mean, they are going to force our hands on all of these issues. I mean, look what they did in California with SB 277, Rowan. Forced mandatory vaccinations for your kid.
We've got that coming here now.
And people stood for it. I mean, there's no revolution in California. And that one I thought would be the line in the sand for many Californians. Evidently not. No.
We've just had our health minister here, Simon Harris, tout the idea through mainstream that he's going to make it mandatory vaccination for non-vaccinated children in the schools. And then if you acquiesce to that, you know, it marches on. It's just the force in the gameplay. The exact same gameplays that they do around the world, they're doing here. And our deep state actors and people, my audience would be like, what is he on about deep state actors? They're all tied in together. It's all working in conjunction to 2030, Agenda 21. It's still flying ahead.
All right. Well, now that we're talking about vaccines, give me 1 minute and 50 seconds to play this soundbite for your audience. Anyone who is listening to this, if you have little children, if you're about to have kids, if your wife's pregnant, if you're thinking about having kids, you have to listen to what I'm about to play for you, and you have to do your own research as it pertains to vaccines. And I'll call out a few specific vaccines right off the top of my head. You have to avoid the hepatitis vaccine for your kids. The only way you can get Hep B is through sex or sharing needles with a drug user, and most babies that get that shot on day 1 or 2 have not engaged in either of those activities. And the new studies coming out of China, where some actual research is being done, shows that the Hep B vaccine causes brain damage in mice. That's number one. The MMR vaccine, which they're now shoving down our throats in this country because of the measles outbreak. The measles, that Brady Bunch, the Brady Bunch show, I don't know how many people are familiar with that show, funny show back in the late 60s. They did an entire episode about the kids getting the measles, and the kids had a grand old time because they got to stay home and play checkers. Yeah. But now, the measles, everybody has to run out and get the MMR vaccine. Otherwise, you risk going to jail. Let me play this for you guys, because the question in this video that I posted on my website, thephaser.com, which showed up on that list of fake news there, 515 websites. The question is, how strict are the vaccine safety studies in the United States? This is Del Bigtree, fantastic guy, the producer of the documentary Vaxxed, and he also has a website, a YouTube channel that y'all must subscribe to, and it's called The High Wire with Del Bigtree. Listen to this, Rowan.
There are no vaccine safety studies. It gets even worse. You know, I've only been talking about the pre-trial safety studies or trials for pre-licensing safety trials. Those aren't being done because the industry doesn't have to do them. They have no liability. And the CDC, we've seen, isn't going to do it because they have a conflict of interest, so nobody's doing it. And this is what we said to the National Institute of Health when Robert Kennedy and I went. And we presented that exact point. So you're not doing any safety studies. You just said it'd be unethical to do them, so you admitted it. You've sort of conceded that ground. So now what you're left with is post-licensing surveillance, is what we call it. So how are we watching these untested vaccines as they're being used in 78 million kids across America overnight? How do you see if it's causing problems, if it's dangerous? You know, what system is in place to capture if there's issues? And what I can tell you and what we discussed with them is there's only one system in place. It's called VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. That essentially is the system where put in place by the 1986 Act as part of it, where if you come back and you're saying my child's having seizures right after we drove away after the vaccines, it even says on the insert, if seizures or other issues like that, report it to VAERS. The doctor is supposed to report it immediately as an injury to VAERS. Here are the actual numbers. In 2016, which is the last VAERS report we got, there's 59,711 reported injuries from vaccines. Now, I think that's a far cry higher than the 1 in a million we're told just from the get-go. 432 deaths, 10,000 emergency room visits, 1,000 permanent disabilities, okay? Those are bad numbers for a product we're forcing people to use.
I'll pause it there. Could you hear that okay?
Yeah.
All right. When he says 1 in a million, what he's saying is that the big pharma drug pushers, the big pharma vax pushers in the mainstream media say mandatory vaccines make sense because it's good for the whole, because vaccine damage is a 1 in a million incident. Here's the problem. The VAERS numbers are startling, but so many of us have children who were damaged over time that we never reported the damages to VAERS. For instance, my little boy who got all of the vaccines, who's now a young man, he was showing signs of processing disorders as a little guy. He got all the vaccines. And after so many of these vaccines, Rowan, my kids would get these 105-degree temperatures, and we're told it's fine, that's normal. Their brains were being cooked. And we didn't know any better. We trusted the system. So if your son gets a nonverbal processing disorder, which today would be diagnosed as Asperger's on the autism spectrum, a nonverbal processing disorder which he got over time and he didn't have when he was born, that's vaccine damage. But we never reported it to VAERS because we didn't know it. It wasn't instantaneous. Now, some kids are instantaneously, immediately injured. Some little people, little guys, little girls, they'll go in and they'll get their second or third round of MMR, and a perfectly normally developing 2-year-old gets a shot, gets terrible seizures or terrible fever, and the next day, full-blown autism. That happens too. So these vax pushers are from the pits of hell, in my opinion. These people, I don't know how they sleep at night. But what's worse is we have these politicians who are bought and paid for peddling the same garbage. Like Jerry Brown in California, who before not being governor any longer, signed into law SB 277 requiring mandatory vaccinations for all kids. Doesn't matter if you homeschool, doesn't matter if you private school. You're getting the needle. It just enrages me, Rowan. It just enrages me because, when I was a kid, I think I got 12, maybe 14 vaccines throughout until I was 18 years old. Now the schedule's 36, and these CDC vax pushers want to raise it to like 72 vaccines. They just keep more and more vaccines. There's not enough vaccines in the world for these people. And I've told my wife, I've now come to the conclusion that these are chemical weapons delivery systems because they are injuring people. If you look at the incidence of autism back in the 70s, even in the early 80s, I think it was 1 in 10,000, which is what it is in the Amish community today. What is it now? It's less than 1 in 50. So not everybody gets autism, not everybody gets hurt, but look at the instances of allergies off the charts, skin disorders off the charts. So people are being hurt by these vaccines, and they just want to push more and more and more and more vaccines on us. And I've told my wife, and I've come public now saying, I believe these are chemical weapons delivery systems because, as Del Bigtree says so often, it's all about profit. It's not just about profit. And Del knows it, and he said it. He's brilliant. It's about injuring people. It's about hurting families. It's about eugenics. It's about destroying what fundamentally makes us great and strong. A family with a child with full-blown autism, often that leads to divorce. It is such an unbearable. Do you know what? I interviewed a friend of mine, I think it was Carrie Rivera, who told me, do you know what the number one incidence of death is in children with full-blown autism?
No.
Suicide murder.
Oh
so often what happens is fathers will leave these families or mothers will leave these families, divorce happens, and you got a single parent trying to deal with a child who needs, and I'm telling you what, a lot of these kids, they have anger issues, they can't talk, they're throwing poop on the wall, they're 15, 16, 17-year-old in diapers, and how is a mother or father supposed to handle that? And you can't go to your job, you can't get care. It's a life sentence, and these goddamn vax pushers just want more and more and more. And they will tell the public at large, we're the fake media, we're the misinformation, we're the disinformation, we're the fake news that needs to be shut down. And our websites get put on a list of 515 websites by the Southern Poverty Law Center to shut down. George Soros wants us all shut down. Now you tell me who the fake news media is. Is it Wolf Blitzer, a former agent of Israel? Is it Anderson Cooper, a former agent of the CIA over there at CNN? Or is it SGT Report? Is it Del Bigtree? Is it Rowan Kraft? You tell me where the fake news is coming from.
Sean, let's jump straight across and hit me with 5G. Let's squeeze it in here now because that was a terrific discussion. Yeah, I know from yourself that you have your two of your children suffer from autism, and it's, as you say, it is a life sentence going forward. People don't question Big Pharma often enough, but let's go on to this. When I watched your last report, and I'll leave the link in the description box to SGT's last report on 5G, you need to pay attention to this. It's rolling out here now as we speak in Dublin, Ireland, and throughout the country and throughout the rest of Ireland, Sean.
Well, look, I'm not an expert on 5G, but I am pretty well researched in the area of eugenics. And I'm pretty well researched in what the New World Order powers that be have been doing to us over time. And Rowan, you're familiar with the Georgia Guidestones, right?
Yeah, 100%.
The Georgia Guidestones basically telegraph and tell us what they want to do, what the plan has been. They want to reduce the global population to 500 million people, probably less, but 500 million from the current 7 billion plus, so that humanity will live in harmony with nature in perpetuity. Their words. They want a one-world religion. They want to destroy families, as I said, and they're doing a good job with it, with vaccines and economic meltdowns all over the planet. And look what's going on in Venezuela. Now, we know that cell phones and cell phone towers, as they existed previous to 5G, were giving people cancer. That's pretty well researched at this point. If you hold a cell phone to your head for hours per day while driving or at your job, which people did a lot 10 years ago when they didn't know any better, many of those people developed brain tumors. Many people get cancer. So now they want to roll out 5G. And let's just read a couple paragraphs here from this article from eluxmagazine.com. More bandwidth, more dangers of 5G. It says, let's start with some basic background on 5G tech. Faster processing speeds require more bandwidth. Yet our current frequency bandwidths are quickly becoming saturated. I find that hard to believe, but okay. The idea behind 5G is to use untapped bandwidth on the extremely high frequency millimeter wave, MMW, between 30 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz, in addition to some lower and mid-range frequencies. Now, high frequency MMWs travel a short distance. Furthermore, they don't travel well through buildings and tend to be absorbed by rain and plants. Think about that. The radiation, the microwave radiation, is being absorbed by rain and plants, leading to signal interference. Thus, the necessary infrastructure would require many smaller, barely noticeable cell towers situated closer together with more input and output ports than there are on the larger, easier to see 4G towers. This would likely result in wireless antennas every few feet on every lamppost and utility post in your neighborhood. Now, Rowan, the people I've interviewed have told me that those frequencies between 30 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz can be used for good, and they can be used for very, very bad. The point is that 5G can be weaponized. 5G is dangerous. The research about 5G has not all been done. Certainly the government hasn't done the research. FCC hasn't done the research. And experts on 5G are warning that it could be far, far more dangerous than our current cell phones and cell systems. And the question begs to be asked, why are they doing it, Rowan? Why are they so eager to roll it out? Do they care so much about us? They care so much about our ability to access information? I've just proven that they don't. They don't want us to access quality information, but they want us to have 5G. They want to put towers on every block, in every neighborhood, in every city in the world. Why? Well, one reason is so they can track and trace everything. The internet of everything, right? They want to track and trace every product you buy, every place you go, every person you talk to, every person on the planet. That's number one. And number two, what if they were to weaponize 5G? What if they were to dial it down to the frequency range that can cause cancer on purpose? Well, they would never do that, Rowan. Oh, well, what about the vaccines? How come they haven't taken the dangerous stuff out of the vaccines, like the aluminum, like the thimerosal mercury, like the formaldehyde, like the fetal cell tissues of babies? But they wouldn't hurt us, Rowan. I think that's the danger of 5G. And somebody I just interviewed most recently, you guys can check it out on my YouTube channel, SGT Report on YouTube, Kent Lewis, who's the founder of freedom.social. I would suggest everybody go sign up for your free account at freedom.social. It is going to use technology to circumvent the system of tracking and tracing us. So if they do take down our forms of social media that we now all rely on, if we're on freedom.social, we'll still be able to talk with each other, exchange ideas, barter, sell, that sort of thing. But Kent warns that maybe this is all part of the mark of the beast system, the one world government system, where if you don't take the mark, you can't buy and sell, right? Because if they track and trace everything, they know what you're up to. If they don't like who you're talking to, if they don't like the information you're spreading, if they don't like the websites you're going to, if they don't like your YouTube channel, well, maybe you won't be able to buy and sell anymore. It's so insidious that it really leads one to believe, and I don't want to be over dramatic here, but it really does lead one to believe that we're living in the end times. Now, I think every generation has probably felt that, but if you go back to the 40s and 50s, They didn't have the internet. They didn't have 5G. Zionism was just kicking off. They didn't have a special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. They didn't have laws being passed all over the world saying you can't criticize Israel. You'll go to jail if you question the Holocaust. You'll go to jail if you say certain things. Certain groups are protected. Certain groups aren't protected. Certain groups are targeted while other groups are lauded, like transgenderism forced on our kids. You can pick your gender now. Did you know that, Rowan? You can identify as a woman if you're a man. And Target Corporation said at one point it was perfectly fine with them. If a man identifies as a woman, he could go into the women's bathroom, even though your little girl might be in there. This is madness. It's absolute off-the-hook madness. And I should probably start quoting the Bible at this point because, honest to God, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities of the darkness of the rulers in high places. We're in a lot of trouble, my friend. And as my friend Marty Leeds said, if you're not religious, maybe you ought to start being religious. You need to look to theology at this point to get the answers to everything, because theology is where it all starts with these people. And the one they worship is not the one we worship. They don't worship, well, let me put it this way. They malign the Lord Jesus Christ every chance they get. They promote shows like Lucifer on Fox. They promote shows like the Santa Clarita Diet about cannibalism on Netflix. They promote the darkest things imaginable. And they malign Jesus Christ every chance they get. So, as Marty Leeds said, if you don't believe in theology, you better start, because that's where this all goes.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank my guest, SGT Report, for jumping in and giving us that absolute drastic haul of truth there, Sean. I couldn't have put it on much better. I don't want to wax too lyrical on it. I just want to leave people to dwell on that and think about it. Go check out Sean's channel, SGT Report. Go look.
Well, Rowan, can I say one thing? Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I don't want to be too dark or too dramatic either. But everything I just said is fact-based. Mm-hmm. Their attack on truth, T-R-U-T-H, truth, quantifiable truth, has never been more overt. And they're not going to stop. And the reason I'm passionate here, and I'm coming across probably in a very dramatic way, is because I can see what they're doing, and they're really out to hurt us. And I thank God every day that Hillary Clinton, that witch, that literal white witch, well, I don't know if she's a black witch, a white witch, but she definitely practices witchcraft. She's definitely a satanic force in this world. I'm thankful every day she's not in the White House, and I'm thankful every day that President Trump is in the White House. So I don't want people to think that I'm anti-Trump because I shared that information about Pompeo swearing in special envoy Elon Carr. But we got to talk about these things, guys. We got to just shine the light of truth wherever we see it. And if there's some bad stuff to say about Trump and his administration, I'm going to say it as long as I can. So I just want people to know this isn't all negative. You know, we do need to see these deep state monsters rounded up and tried for their crimes. And I do think we might see indictments coming, and I do think we might see trials coming. And if we do that, then Rowan, let's have another update, because that'll be very good news. I'll do cartwheels down the street and film it for you, right? So there's the potentiality that there's good news on the horizon. But at the end of the day, we all need to be pragmatists too. And there's a hell of a lot of stuff coming down the pike that gives us pause. So anyway, I just want to say that because I didn't want this all to be doom and gloom, but we got our hands full, and they don't want us talking about these things. They don't want the news getting out. So that's why they're targeting the alt media. So thank you, Rowan. No,
Sean, it just drives it back to me when we first started off on the journey just at the 2016 campaign, and just before that, when President Trump announced, and then when Q came on the scene, how far back and how long we've come, and the massive amounts of information that the QAnon has dropped. And again, if you're unaware of who QAnon is, go back through any of SGT reports, go back to my earlier stuff. There's loads of great YouTubes. You can go on the QAnon, type in QAnon into Google. You'll get the latest drops, the Q drops that are coming back up.
Yeah, QAnon.pub is a good one.
QAnon.pub, yeah. And I realized that it's even when we knew about the stroke page when we knew about the Pfizer warrant abuses, when we knew about that last year, we see the mainstreams coming on now. Sean Hannity, they've been doing great work with John Solomon and Sarah Carter. Dan Bongino's been knocking out some great stuff. His podcast has risen through. Even with all of that, we were aware of that a year ago. I begin to realise that the wheels of justice are going to turn excruciatingly slow. So I'm sort of thinking it's going to be in President Trump's second term if we're going to see any actual prosecutions. I think now all the way for the lead-in is going to be the charges, is going to be the congressional hearings, and we might just have our usual suspects all up in front of juries. But with the Adler and the House stalling and carrying on the Russia collusion nonsense, I just want President Trump to drop the hammer. Let's get this show on the road. Something.
Yeah. You and me both, man. You and me both. I mean, you're right. Bongino's been knocking it out of the park. That guy does great work, and he's got a good YouTube channel. So, no, you're right. I mean, if we don't see these people arrested, I mean, because we can all see. I mean, anybody who's awake now, anybody who, it's just so blatant. I mean, it's shocking how blatant it is. Their lies. The Democratic Party has nothing to stand on. They're selling out the country. They want open borders. They now are openly saying. Cory Booker just said the other day, if he was president, he would basically ban the Second Amendment, and anyone who didn't turn in their firearms would go to jail, go to prison. Throw them in prison, he said. I mean, these people are traitors to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They cheer for abortion on demand in the 9th month. They cheered. They literally cheered in New York when Cuomo signed into law, abortion on demand in the 9th month is A-OK. They cheered. And then that demonic governor, had them light the new World Trade Center building pink in celebration of it, or was it the Empire State Building? I forget which, but I think it was. I think it was the Spire. It was a Spire on One World Trade. Yeah, these people are demonic. They worship at the altar of abortion. Now, again, it just stuns me that we live in this time. It stuns me that the world is this far gone. And it gets me back to biblical principles. Because you'll recall when Pontius Pilate had that horrible choice to make, and he thought, I don't want to condemn this man to death. I'll let the people choose. What did he do? He gave the people Barabbas or Jesus Christ. And he thought, well, certainly they'll pick to execute Barabbas and free Jesus Christ. Barabbas, the murderer, rapist, the worst of the worst. Certainly they'll choose to execute him and free Jesus Christ. So I'm off the hook. What did the people do? They cheered and demanded the death of Jesus Christ. And they said, free Barabbas. These are the same people aligned against us today. Fast forward 2,000 years. What's changed? What's changed? The people on the left cheer for abortion on demand. They hate Jesus Christ. I don't know what else to tell you, man. Again, it all goes back to theology. And if you haven't studied Scripture, it's probably time to start, because there's truth in the Bible, and the people aligned against us hate it. And they hate him, and they hate Christianity, and they hate our ideals. They hate family. They hate all of it. They hate divine. They hate children. They traffic in children. The Podesta brothers, it was Breitbart who said in 2011, it stunned him that the whole world didn't already know that John Podesta was a world-class underage sex slave op, cover-upper, defending unspeakable dregs. John Podesta connected to the Clintons for nearly 2 decades. Tony Podesta involved in all sorts of nefarious activities with Ukraine, pedophilic art all over his home. These people are sick.
John, speak to us quickly about Haiti. Talk about the damage that the Clintons have done in Haiti, and most people that are involved or have business operations over there are going to come under close scrutiny from the...
Yeah, they ought to. Just in Haiti alone, I believe it's somewhere near $12 billion that was raised after that devastating earthquake for the people of Haiti went missing. And it was Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton that helped through telethons and going on TV to raise all that money. The Clinton Foundation responsible for, I believe, $12 billion. 95% of that money is missing. It's never been accounted for. And to this day, people from Haiti campaign outside of the Clinton headquarters in New York City, demanding that these people be investigated, demanding that the Clinton Foundation be investigated. And it was the Clintons who came to the aid of a woman named Laura Silsby, who was caught after that earthquake trying to get out of Haiti with 33 children. 33 children, some orphans, some merely just separated through the devastation of the earthquake from their parents. So they weren't parentless, but they were separated from their parents. They wound up with Laura Silsby, who was trying to traffic them out of Haiti. She was arrested, thank God, at the border for child trafficking. And who came to her aid?
Swinging Bill.
Swinging Bill Clinton and a child trafficking lawyer, a guy who had previously been convicted for child trafficking, was her attorney. But yeah, the Clintons came to her aid. And instead of doing a dozen years or 20 years in a Haitian prison, she did 6 months in jail. And then she went to work for, what is it called? Something Sense, Alert Sense, I believe. And she was, and that was connected to, the Amber Alert system. So the woman, it's just, you can't make this stuff up. Hugh says these people are pure evil, and that's the truth. They are. I
wanted to just to tie into my Irish audience, because we're so drip fed and so media managed here. But what content actually gets through to us, if you don't go through VPNs, if you don't understand VPNs and all that, we've got a huge diaspora that just don't engage in the social media. So when we just had Nancy Pelosi over here, and before that we had the Clinton herself was here with James Comey, and these people were lauded and celebrated in our highest academia, Trinity College. They were again lauded over what was supposed to be the Irish centenary celebrations, or the turning of the stone. There's a certain traditional thing that's carried out. Pelosi came and they spoke to, guess who? John Legend and his wife were here.
Oh.
And, yeah, they were talking about them, and it was just her feelings about how much she despised President Trump and how she had a physical or a mental psychosis over the Trump. What are people going to be like if they ever found out about the truth about them two?
Oh, about Bill and Hillary?
No, about John Legend and his wife.
Oh, yeah, and his model wife. Yeah, well, my friend Liz Crokin has been very outspoken about John Legend's wife. Her name escapes me at the moment. It'll come to me later. But
I know Liz. I was speaking with Liz as well. We were going to come in and talk about it, but it was just too early for any of that over here just yet.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, the people on the left, and we see this every single day in this country, the people on the left, the politicians on the left, Pelosi, Feinstein, Cory Booker, demanding for to take the guns, Alexandria Cortez, Hillary Clinton, John Podesta. These people are still celebrated and lauded by the people on the left. So I don't think that really much of anything, well, first of all, if anything came out, the mainstream media is not going to report about it. And if we do, it'll get buried. Mm-hmm. And but it gets me back to that comment about Barabbas. Like, I don't think there's any measure of evil. Look, if these people celebrate 9th-month abortions, and a bill actually being passed. Now, this is legal in some states. If the baby survives the abortion, they can still kill it.
Yeah.
Like so,
over in Virginia.
And these people applaud that. They cheer it. So I don't think that there's really any level of evil that could be uncovered that the Clintons have been involved with that their side wouldn't cover up for. And that's the sick part, man. That's why this is spiritual warfare. That's why I say it goes back to theology and Jesus Christ in the Bible. Because truth is truth, black is black, white is white. I mean, evil is evil and good is good. So these two sides, good and evil, are diametrically opposed. And many human beings are on the side of evil, while those of us on the side of good, trying to wake people up, wonder why we can't wake everybody up. And it's because some people are aligned on the side of evil. They embrace it. They love it. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can save them. The only thing that can save them is, and I've said this before, we can't wake up our friends, neighbors, and colleagues, everybody in your life. You can't wake them up. They have to choose to want to wake up. They have to want to wake up. They have to do the research on their own. You can, push them in the right direction. You can send them links and videos and information, but unless they choose to wake up, they won't. That doesn't make everybody evil, right? It doesn't make everybody listening. If your mom or dad is a liberal because they get their news from NPR, public radio in this country, that doesn't make them evil, but it makes them lost souls, in my opinion. I mean, if you're going to support people who are evil and who have done evil and all that's quantifiable, then I guess you're culpable, aren't you? Mm-hmm. So everybody has to do soul searching, whether you're on the left, the right, or in between. Because again, at the end of the day, evil is evil and good is good. And in my opinion, and yes, there's crappy, horrible people on the right as well, Zionists and everything else, but a lot of the people on the left in this country, the Democrats, the hardcore Democrats, they're Marxists, they're communists, and that's evil. And then many of them more, I say they're Satanists. I really firmly believe that. They're into witchcraft. They're into very, very dark energy and dark things. And maybe they don't all worship Lucifer specifically, but if you start dabbling in witchcraft and you start dabbling in the dark arts, which many of these people did. Oh, Christy Teigen. That's her name.
That's it, yeah. Christy Teigen.
That's John Legend's wife. I knew it would pop into my head. A lot of these people are into the dark arts, man. So evil is evil and good is good. Which side are you on?
We're just, I'll let my audience explore all the symbiology and the hand gestures and the face gestures. If you go and look, you will come around to that level of understanding. Sean, I want to wrap it up there. We're coming up close in an hour, 55 minutes, and I'm sure we could have gone on a lot longer. And I really want to thank you for agreeing to come on and share some of these truths from your side of the water with the protection of the freedom of speech, the freedom of speech amendment that you're, fighting so desperately to hang on to over there. Sean, thanks very much for joining me.
Hey, my pleasure, Rowan. I really enjoyed it. So God bless you. God bless your audience.
And God bless you, sir. And I'll just finish out, just check out, and I'll leave the link in the description below, SGT Report. There's a wealth of information there, and also his website, thephaser.com. Lots of sites. One will lead you on to the other. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode of the Gran Torino.
Bye-bye.